Welcome back to Sports on Tap. Josh Jeffy taking it old school a little bit here.
House of Pain, baby.
Studio J here. I am Ed Dick here with the aforementioned Josh Jeffy, Sean Duffy as well. Rob Troutman is out on assignment. We just took care of his conference, the Southwestern Conference, in the previous segment. Right now, live on Mixler, Mixler.com, Sports on Tap. Our Twitter handle is at SOT Podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes and also check out our YouTube channel. We are going to discuss the Suburban League National and American divisions as we normally do. We will start with the National Division, which is the conference that I cover. We'll talk about the Week 9 recaps there. I actually had 2 game of the weeks. There's the one, the first game had major playoff implications. All right, so the playoff picture starting to come into focus for the National Division. Our first of 2 spotlight games for the Suburban League National Division saw undefeated Brecksville Broadview Heights travel to 7-1 Stowe Monroe Falls in a battle to solidify their spot for both the top of the division and the playoffs. Stowe started the scoring off with a 13-yard touchdown pass from senior quarterback Kyle Van Treese to senior wide receiver Logan Lindsay. Brecksville senior quarterback Luke Sternad answers with an 11-yard touchdown strike to sophomore wide receiver Ken Ganley. From there, it was all Stowe. Terrian Ray rushed for an 8-yard score, followed by a 30-yard field goal by kicker Austin Burnham. Then a 1-yard touchdown run by Van Treese, and finally the nail in the coffin, an 88-yard interception return for a touchdown by linebacker running back Joe Gobble. Stowe carried a 31-7 lead into the fourth quarter, completely shutting down Luke Sternad and that B offense. Austin Burnham connected on a 27-yard field goal, and then Gobble got an offensive touchdown, rushing for a 9-yard touchdown run, and accounting for the final score, Stowe 41, Brecksville Broadview Heights 7. Stowe improves to 8-1 overall, 5-1 in the conference. The Bulldogs have clinched a spot in the Division I Region I playoffs. They currently sit as the number 3 seed. The Bulldogs will travel to North Royalton to close out the regular season. Brecksville Broadview Heights suffers their first loss of the season, and they sit with an identical 8-1 overall record, 5-1 in the conference. The Bees sit at number 7 in Division II Region 5. They do control their playoff destiny. However, it will not be easy as the Bees will host the Hudson Explorers. The aforementioned Explorers are coming to their contest, 6-2 overall, 4-1 in the conference. They had their hands full with the Wadsworth Grizzlies, who came into the game 4-4 overall and 3-2 in the conference. The Explorers jumped out to an 11-point lead thanks to 2 Kevin Callahan touchdown runs covering 1 and 7 yards, bookending a 40-yard field goal by junior kicker Grant Gagne. Wadsworth's Alex Jones did score from 3 yards out in the first half. The Grizzlies then tightened up their defense. They were able to tie the game with less than 5 minutes left, thanks to another Alex Jones touchdown run from 1 yard out and a 28-yard field goal by Connor Mendel. Hudson they forced a turnover in Grizzly territory and drove 49 yards, ending in an 8-yard run by Kevin Callahan with just 9 seconds left. Hudson escapes with a 24-17 victory over the Wadsworth Grizzlies. Hudson's Kevin Callahan finished with 28 carries for 138 yards and 3 touchdowns. Wadsworth quarterback Joey Bachman rushed 34 times for 139 yards. He also passed for 134 yards on 12 of 26 passing with 1 interception. Hudson improves to 7-2 overall, 5-1 in the conference. They have clinched a playoff berth in Division II Region 5, and they currently sit as the number 4 seed. They will travel to Brecksville Broadview Heights for a chance to clinch a share of the conference title. Wadsworth drops to 4-5 overall, 3-3 in the conference. They have been eliminated from the Division II Region 6 playoffs. The Grizzlies will finish their season hosting Macedonia Nordonia. On to North Royalton and Cuyahoga Falls. North Royalton coming into this contest 2-6 overall, 1-4 in conference play, traveling to 1-7 overall, 0-5 Cuyahoga Falls Black Tigers. The Bears got an 11-yard touchdown pass from freshman quarterback Joe Marusic to Tyler Nurick, and a 14-yard touchdown run by Dominic Carrillo to edge past the Black Tigers by a score of 12-7. With the win, North Royalton improves to 3-6 overall, 2-4 in the conference. They have been eliminated from playoff contention in Division I, Region 2. The Bears will host Stowe Monroe Falls to close their season. Cuyahoga Falls drops to 1-8 overall. They remain winless in conference play. The Black Tigers are eliminated from playoff contention in Division I, Region 1. They will host Twinsburg in their season finale. Game of the week number 2 in my conference was played between the aforementioned Twinsburg Tigers. They came into this game 2-6 overall, 2-3 in the conference, fresh off of their upset of Hudson in Week 8. They hosted neighbor Macedonia Nordonia, 3-5 overall, 1-4 in conference play. Twinsburg continued their late season roll, piling up 31 first-half points en route to a 37-13 victory over the Knights. Running back Cameron McLean started the scoring for the Tigers, rushing for a 3-yard touchdown. Twinsburg quarterback Adam Vandemater then found Jalen Tucker for a 93-yard touchdown. Vandemater then called his own number, rushing for a 25-yard touchdown. McLean found Pater from 8 yards out, and kicker Casey McCarthy added a 35-yard field goal, and the Tigers jumped out to a 31-0 halftime lead over Nordonia. The Knights did find the end zone on a 12-yard touchdown pass from Robbie Levick to Donnie Wisniak. McLean then rushed for his third touchdown of the game for the Tigers to push the lead back out to 37-6. Our old friend Anthony Perrine then finished the scoring with a 65-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter. Cameron McLean overall rushed for 72 yards and 3 touchdowns on 17 carries. Quarterback Anna Vandemater completed 4 of 8 passing for 102 yards and a touchdown. He also rushed 10 times for 49 yards and a touchdown. Twinsburg improves to 3-6 overall, 3-3 in the conference. The Tigers have been eliminated from playoff contention in Division II, Region 5. They will travel to Cuyahoga Falls to finish their season. Nordonia drops to 3-6 overall, 1-5 in the conference. They are also eliminated from the Division II, Region 5 playoffs. The Knights will finish their season against Wadsworth. My Week 9 MVP for the week, it's going to go to Hudson running back Kevin Callahan. He had 34 carries for 139 yards and 3 touchdowns and the game-winning touchdown with 9 seconds left in a 24-17 victory over the Wadsworth Grizzlies. My Week 10 game of the week, this is probably another obvious one, but I can't ignore it. It's going to be Hudson taking on Brecksville Broadview Heights. The winner will get at least a share of the conference title and a boatload of computer points. Hudson is already into the playoffs. They're playing for the conference title and playoff positioning. Brecksville Broadview Heights, they need to win a lot more than Hudson does. While they do control their own destiny, there is another outside shot that they could get overtaken, just like what happened last year when they started out the season undefeated and stumbled as the season came to a close. So lots of good stuff going on in the Suburban Division, or Suburban Conference National Division. Top 3 teams are Stowe, Hudson, Brecksville, Broadview Heights. They are all 5-1 in the conference. Stowe most likely is going to get a victory over North Royalton, so they will be 6-1 in the conference, and then it comes down to Brecksville, Broadview Heights, and Hudson to see who's going to tie Stowe for the conference title. So lots of good stuff going on there once again. Unfortunately, only three teams making the playoffs, possibly from the National Division. 2 teams are already in, and we'll see what Brecksville Broadview Heights can do going into Week 10. I'm going to shoot it over now to Mr. Duffy, my cohort, my compadre, my colleague.
Partner in crime.
Partner in crime. He's the one who says that.
I know.
I say that I have now set up my triple C's that I go with.
Okay.
He goes with the old PIC.
Yep, PIC for show.
So my PIC.
There it is.
Man, it's weird.
Got him saying it.
Sure. Sean Duffy is going to go over the Suburban League American Division.
All right, thank you, Ed. First, we're going to start off in Aurora, where they welcomed in Canada Prep Academy, and they easily defeated Canada Prep Academy 36-13. Aurora dominated the first half with 32 points, including a 40-yard touchdown run by senior quarterback Mac Austin. Senior running back Chris Vanzo, not to be outdone, had 2 one-yard touchdowns runs, and Aurora took care of business, handled their business. They currently hold the number 1 seed in Division II, Region 5 of the playoffs, improving their record to 8-1 overall, 5-1 in the American Division. Essentially, Aurora has clinched the division and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. They will host Talmadge in Week 10 to finish off the regular season. My next game is Copley traveling to Kent Roosevelt, and after a disappointing Week 8 loss to Aurora, Copley bounced back in a big way against Kent Roosevelt. Copley's running back Weston Bridges scored 5 touchdowns. Touchdown runs of 3 yards, 16 yards, 33 yards, 9 yards, and 10 yards respectively. Copley quarterback Austin Brenner had a touchdown pass for 30 yards to Alex Zelch. Kent Roosevelt was able to get on the board late, but it didn't make much difference in this one. Copley improves to 7-1 and 4-1 in the division and has clinched a playoff spot. They will host Bedford to close out the regular season in a non-conference matchup, which is a big game because these two are sitting right near each other in the playoff rankings. So the winner is going to get a boatload of computer points and may push themselves into hosting a playoff game. Kent Roosevelt falls to 2-7 and 1-5 in the division, and they will travel to Highland to end their season. Next up on the docket, we have Talmadge traveling to Revere, and Talmadge had an early 12-0 lead in this, but after falling behind early, Revere turned things around in the second quarter on a 23-yard field goal by Matthew Giltner. Clayton Langdon added 2 touchdowns in the third quarter, one from 5 yards out and the other on a 46-yard ramble. Giltner's 30-yard field goal pretty much surged the lead to 21-12, and Revere was able to score 21 straight points to earn a 21-15 comeback victory. The Blue Devils were limited to only a field goal after putting up 12 unanswered points, and Revere will close out the regular season when they host Barberton in Week 10, whereas Talmadge will try to snap its losing streak against Aurora on the road. That will be a difficult task, to say the least. My Suburban League Week 9 Spotlight game found Highland traveling to Barberton. Both of these teams needed the win in order to stay alive in the playoffs, and only one could get the win. And unfortunately, in this case, it was the Magics who was able to pull off a win. Barberton used a quick strike 45-yard touchdown pass on the 4th play of the game, and a 15-play 82-yard drive capped off by a 7-yard touchdown pass to take a 14-0 lead in the first quarter. Barberton quarterback Zane Reese finished 14 of 17 for 247 yards and 4 passing touchdowns. Ooh. Highland got back into it with a 29-yard jet sweep by Jake Rogers, and then drove 79 yards in 5 plays in the final 127 to close within 20-14 by halftime. The key in that drive was a 44-yard fly pass down the right sideline to wide receiver Jake Sir Lewis. Barberton recovered a squib kick to start the second half, and Highland's defense forced and recovered a fumble 4 plays later. At that point, Burnside went in for the lead, but Barberton senior Kobe Booker turned a misdirection screen into a 72-yard touchdown in the third quarter, which proved to be the game-winning score. Highland falls to 5-4 and 2-3 in the division. The loss closes the door on the Highland Hornets' playoff hopes in Division II, Region 6. They will end the season, as I mentioned, at home against Kent Roosevelt in Week 10. Barberton improves to 7-2 and 3-2 in the division and are very much alive in Division II, Region 5, currently sitting in 9th place. They will need a win in Week 10 at Revere and a loss from either Akron, Ellet, or as Ed alluded to in his breakdown, his spotlight game, the Brecksville-Hudson game, may allow Barberton to sneak into the 8th spot should they be able to secure a win. However, it's all going to need to play out on the field, as they say. My Week 9 MVP is going to go to quarterback Zane Reese. Guy had a great night, 14 of 17, 247 yards, 4 touchdowns, and when his team needed to win to keep their playoff hopes alive, they turned to him, and he was able to deliver. My Week 10 spotlight game for the American Division is the Barberton Magics traveling to the Revere Minutemen. And again, this is another one of those do-or-die things for Barberton. They need this win, and they need to do a little bit of scoreboard watching to see if their playoff hopes remain alive. So, guys, that's pretty much for the Suburban League. You feel for Highland. They've been playing well. They've been kind of really streaky all year, I think. Had some really good games there, but when they needed to take care of business, unfortunately, they just ran into 3 good teams, and that's the top 3 teams in the division. It's Aurora, Copley, and Barberton. You'd like to see all 3 of those make the playoffs. Unfortunately, only 8 can go in, and we're seeing that. So I'm very interested to see if Barberton can get this win and maybe get a little bit of help from the other teams above them.
Well, when you look at Highland, though, too, going back, we covered them our first Week 1 game of the week. That was, it turns out now, a pretty big loss for them. Mm-hmm. Brunswick's only victory of the year was against Highland, 17-14 victory over Highland. And that loss proves to be pretty large for them, as they will now miss the playoffs this year. So that's why you can't take any team lightly. And you got to try and go out there, and every game in your season now matters.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at their schedule, unfortunately, they've not been able to take out the big dogs. 3 of their losses are to teams that are either 7-2 or better. Their other loss, obviously, is to Brunswick. You talk about how big of a loss it is for Highland, and it is losing any sort of a game. I mean, you're missing out on the level 1 points from beating a Division I team.
Yep.
And if things could have gone a little bit differently for Brunswick would be worth more than 1 win right now. So I mean, really, anyone who beat Brunswick, they're not getting much points off of us because we haven't been able to string it together. But like you said, Sean, the class of the division is Aurora and Copley. They've clearly proven themselves to be the head of the group there. Barberton, you can't ignore what they've done this year. They've put together a really great year. Mm-hmm. Their only losses are to Copley and Aurora.
Right.
They've played everyone else, and they lost to Copley was by a point.
Yeah.
I mean, they very much had a chance to win that game. So you have a 5-4 Revere team coming in who started out hot, and now they've cooled off a little bit once they got the conference play. But they're still not a team you can't take lightly.
Yeah, Revere's a very dangerous team. Clayton Langdon, I was very high on him in the beginning of the year, and unfortunately ran into a couple of really good defenses that stifled him. But if he gets going against that Barberton team, watch out, because Revere can come out and bite you. And I think that's something that the coaching staff in Barberton needs to take a real hard look at the film. Is if you don't play sound defense, that guy can hurt you. Again, I don't want to write Barberton off, but like you said, a lot has to go right. They have to win. A couple teams ahead of them have to lose, and even then, it's no guarantee. You know what I mean? It's funny. I mean, it's a numbers based game here. Unfortunately, it comes down to computer points, and while those losses are respectable, the 1 point loss to Copley and the loss to Aurora, they're still losses.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
As you mentioned, margin of victory doesn't play a single bit of importance in this. It's simply, did you win? Didn't you? Okay, you get the points. If not, you don't get the points. And that's where Barberton, again, I think finds themselves on the outside looking in. And again, it's tough with Aurora and Copley the last couple of years, especially in this division. Aurora has run roughshod over this American division the last 2 years. And they, I look for Aurora to obviously continue against a team like Kent Roosevelt in Week 10, but also remember what happened to them in Week 1 of the playoffs. They got bounced, and they got bounced pretty quickly and pretty soundly in that division. So they need to be looking towards the future and saying, hey, it's not about getting there anymore. It's about getting there and going as deep as possible so that we can, build on that for the next year. And they got to take advantage of the guys like Chris Vanzo and Mac Austin and guys like that. So that's going to be interesting for me, and I look for that. But I'm really excited to see that Barberton game just because, those kids, we saw them, I think we saw the Barberton Copley game, and that team and that city is really amped up for that football team. It's really cool to see. Same thing with Copley, same thing with Aurora. I mean, they travel really well, so it's a very good conference, and it's been fun to cover them. But, yeah, you're right. The class of it is Aurora and Copley.
Yeah, and Aurora's already clinched a home game, so they know they're playing their first game at home. Copley is very close to getting there themselves. They Right now they're sitting behind. Right now they're sitting behind Hudson, Warren G. Harding, Chardon, all of which are having tremendous years. Hudson, as we talked about before, has a real good shot. If they can take out Brecksville Broadview Heights, not only to knock Brecksville Broadview Heights out, but also guarantee themselves a conference championship and a home game in the Division II Region 5 playoffs. And for some of the other teams that we've talked about over the year, for your division, Duff, you got the Kent Roosevelts. In my division, maybe the Cuyahoga Falls, Talmadge. It's the positive news. Cuyahoga Falls, they got a victory this year. They were able to secure a victory, first game of the year. Unfortunately, just in my division, as well as in yours, there's just 3 or 4 stud teams that are just they feast on each other. They feast on the rest of the division, then they beat each other up, and it's just hard for some of those teams to compete with the Auroras, the Copleys, the Stows, and the Hudsons and Brecksville Broadview Heights.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to, you could conceivably say there's that tier system. There's probably 2 studs that are there every year, 2 tweeners, and I think in my division it's Barberton and it's Highland.
Yep,
it's
absolutely.
Those 2 teams. And then there's usually 1 or 2 teams on the come, and I think this year it was Revere, and I think it was also probably Kent Roosevelt. Kent Roosevelt didn't win a game last year, and they got 2 this year. You know what I mean? They got their first conference win. So that's huge. That's nothing to shake a stick at. It's tough to get a win any Friday night. Ask any coach, any player. It's you know what I mean? It's not exactly like you're not guaranteed anything but to play the game. So, good. It's not a bad season for Kent Roosevelt. You have twice as many wins as you had last year. You know what I mean? So.
Yep. Absolutely. Do a quick recap of Fayetteville. My brother-in-law, Coach Kevin Finch. This past Friday night, unfortunately, they were shut out by Notre Dame. It's 27-0. Once again, they are conference champions. However, their last 2 games are not conference games, so that was a relatively a big loss for them. They do have an opportunity to make some noise and try to get in the playoffs next week. They play Bishop Reedy, a 6-3 team, also a Division 6 team. Fayetteville right now is 9th in Division 6, Region 24. They do not control their own destiny. They're in a good situation, though. Usually, if they were able to get a win, chances are they will be in the playoffs and playing in Week 11. And then, Duff, you want to bring us up to speed on Vandalia real quick?
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag with my Butler Aviators. They had a huge win over Sydney, who was 3-6 or was 2-6 coming into the game. They won 52-28. The problem is they're sitting at 5-4 and number 9 in the Region 8 of Division 2, and as much that needs to go right for Barberton again, and a lot more needs to go right for Butler again. And I don't see them actually making the playoffs unless every team ahead of them loses, and I don't see that typically happening. So we're kind of in a situation for my Aviators where another good season. It's Coach Nathan Hyde's first season. Well, I think it's his first season as the head coach there, taking over for Greg Bush. So really good season, really good effort by the team. But unfortunately, like I said, they lost a couple of big games to Troy, who's number 1 in that region. They lost a game to a Division 1 team in Northmont. And a couple of big games, and they lost to Piqua, which is a big game. So, the losses, unfortunately, as we said, they ran into some really good teams, and they're just a young team trying to make their way. So, they're going to finish out their season at Tippecanoe High School, which is only about a 5-10 minute drive from Vandalia. It's kind of a nice little drive there. So it should be a fun game. I know Tippecanoe is looking probably to get into the playoffs, if I'm not 100%. They're in Division 3, Region 12.
Yeah, they're 10th right now.
Yeah, so they're one of those teams that maybe need to take care of business and do some scoreboard watching, even as much as Butler. So should be a good game. I wish my Aviators all the luck in the world. Take care of them Red Devils up there in Tip City. So that's it for my hometown team, the Aviators.
Very well. So this was the Suburban League, both national, American and national division recaps for Week 9. When we come back, we will talk about our spotlight game of the week overall. We'll also talk a little bit down at Buckeye football, and we'll discuss where we're going to be next week for the regular season finale. Once again, for Ed Dick, this is Josh Jeffy, Sean Duffy, Rob Troutman, of course, is on assignment. Catch us live on Mixler.com, Sports on Tap. Subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube. Hit us on Twitter at SOT Podcast. We are part of the NEO Sports Insiders Network. We'll see you for the next segment.